Southern California, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have a jam-packed show for you all as we have quite a bit to talk about in Southern California in the next hour. The Rams and Chargers have released their schedules to the public. How tough will these schedules be, and will both teams be able to make the playoffs? Also, which matchups are you looking forward to? And the Kings, they are one win away from advancing to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Can the Kings do it? Can they advance? How about the Sparks winning their first two games of the season, but dropping a heartbreaker to the Atlanta Dream? Sucks, but it's only one loss. They will survive. How about LA Galaxy's win over Austin FC? Did that catapult them up the Western Conference standings? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direction for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening. Hope you all are having a great day. Hope you all are having a great night, depending on where you are listening from. I will be getting into why I switched up SoCal Supreme Sports Show in a little bit, but first, we have a word from our sponsors. iSports Radio is proud to call the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team the official sponsor of iSports Radio. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to trout for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE or SoCal Southern California then Warriors. And then IE Sports Radio is available on Twitter at IE Sports Radio, as well as Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. And when you go to the website of IE Sports Radio, www.iesportsradio.com, you will see a Patreon link there with 5 different tiers, with the first one starting off at $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out from all 32 of our shows, and higher tiers will include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on our flagship show in a segment, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because coming up on 8 years in about 3 days, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, IE Sports Radio has been by the fans, and they've been continued to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you, everyone, for all of your support and for helping make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout out to our fan of the month for the month of May, Justin Ekstrom. His Twitter is @thesportscrib21, and he is a Minnesota Vikings fan. And he's one of my Twitter followers, so I gotta give Justin a big shout out. And like I said, I do gotta interact with him some more. That's gonna be one of my goals, to interact with more of these fans. So, also want to give a shout out to Mike Pat. I don't know if I gave him a shout out on Set Point on Monday, but he was the winner of the IE Sports Radio 2022 Mock Draft Challenge. Unfortunately, my reign has come to an end, but it was a good run. So, congratulations to Mike Pat. He is the host of Let's Whine About Sport, or Let's Whine About DMV Sports. So, definitely do give him a follow at Let's Whine _IESR. And we have 4 Patreon supporters: Bay Area Raised Apparel, Marcus Los Great, Keys to the Gate, and an anonymous supporter on Patreon. So that's 4 Patreon supporters for IE Sports Radio, and we definitely appreciate each and every one of them. And IE Sports Radio turns 8 this weekend. They turn 8 on Sunday, but on Saturday there's going to be a 3-hour show of the defining moment, the flagship show of IE Sports Radio, and basically it's going to start on Saturday, May 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you can come hang out with all of your favorite IE Sports Radio personalities, including Larry B., the one and only, and we thank you for helping all this. We thank you for making this possible, and once again, we thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, so now let's get into why I'm having SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Thursday instead of Friday. So what was looking like I was going to have SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, turned out to being a bit of a setback just because I have something going on. I have something to cover regarding Set Point. So I had to move SoCal Supreme Sports Show to tonight. And unfortunately, one of our other shows, Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Wings, oh my, with Zach Puplis, has postponed the show to a later date. So I thought it was the perfect time to go live for tonight. So I'll try to squeeze everything into 1 hour. I'll try to get into the Dum Dum of the Week award. Honestly, I don't really think I have one qualified, but I do have a Dum Dum of the Week. I just saw something very dumb today, and I have to put this person on blast. Anyway, and then I also got to ring in IE Sports Radio celebrating 8 years old with a little bit of a tribute. Well, not like a tribute, but just like a little theme for this show. But anyway, enough of me rambling. And we got to give a shout out to the chat room. Arthur Parsons is in the chat room. He says he hopes I have a great show, and he says you can do it. Thank you. He had himself a great show with the Bayou Bulletin, even though he ran to some technical hitches, but as always, Arthur had a great show with the Bayou Bulletin. He talks about all things New Orleans sports, as well as things in Louisiana. Definitely give him a listen. 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Central Time is when the Bayou Bulletin goes live. All right, now let's jump on into the Southern California sports, because we are already 9 minutes in. So, anyway, the Rams and Chargers have released their schedule for the up-and-coming 2022 season. So we'll start with the Chargers' schedule. So the Chargers' schedule will begin with the preseason. Even though I do not care about preseason, no one is going to sucker me into caring about the preseason or any preseason sport in general, whether it's basketball, baseball, or any of that. So Chargers' preseason schedule. August 13th in Week 1, they have the Rams. August 20th in Week 2, they have the Cowboys. And Week 3, depending on when that'll be, because it says it's to be determined, the Chargers play the Saints. So that's the preseason. Once again, it's just 3 preseason games. I'm not really fully invested into that, so Yeah. Now for the regular season schedule. So, first game right off the bat, it's a home game. I guess we could label this one home game just because their opponent's fans travel as well. Arthur says, I don't even talk about that's how much I don't care about preseason. Thank you, Arthur. I'm glad you and I agree on something. So, back to the Chargers' Week 1 schedule. So, their Week 1 schedule consists of the Raiders. Yeah, Raiders! I am so sorry. I will not do that again. But that's my Chris Berman impersonation. But the Chargers play the Raiders at SoFi Stadium. Obviously, we all know that the Chargers took one on the chin in Week 18 in overtime against the Raiders. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this. I think this might be the best non-primetime game on Sunday. I really think this is going to be a barn burner, especially with how deep the AFC West is. So I'm really looking forward to the Chargers and Raiders squaring off. After that, the Chargers have a quick turnaround. In Week 2, they have a Thursday night game as they head down to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead. I will forever refer to it as Arrowhead regardless of what it's called. So right off the bat, the Chargers have two divisional opponents, and they're both really good. They both made the playoffs, and the Chiefs were one Patrick Mahomes interception, possible one Patrick Mahomes interception away from maybe making the the Super Bowl. But either way, that's how it's going to be, and I think it's going to be a great challenge. It's going to really test the Chargers early on, so we'll see how it goes. Jumping to Week 3, the Chargers will head back to SoFi to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this one's going to be against Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. So the Jaguars have been kind of this anomaly team of weirdness. Like, they have potential on paper, and they do have the new number 1 pick in Trayvon Walker, but it all depends on how they use this new potential and whatnot. I think it's going to be a great battle between two young quarterbacks. The Chargers did get the better of the Jaguars a couple seasons ago as they won in actually, no, they didn't win in Duval. I was going to say they won in Duval, but they actually played at SoFi. So the Chargers won that one a couple seasons ago, and hopefully the Chargers can pull off the win again. That's in Week 3. Week 4, the Chargers head down to the Lone Star State to take on the Houston Texans. Now, this one kind of has trap game written all over it. Now, for those of us that remember what happened with the Chargers in Week 16, the Chargers had a bit of a boo-boo against the Houston Texans. In the Chargers' defense, they had players out with COVID and injuries, but I really thought the Chargers really wet the bed when it came to losing that game. I really was disappointed. I really don't want them falling into that pit trap ever again. So, yeah, we better beat Houston, Arthur. I totally agree. So, the Chargers have to beat Houston. It's kind of their redemption game because, maybe I wouldn't call it the redemption game, but this is a game where the Chargers have to come up big in. I really think they really should beat the Texans. I think they have a much better scheme. I think their defense has improved. I'm sure they'll get better as time goes by. And once the Chargers start gelling with one another, I think the team cohesion is going to be one to remember. So we'll see what happens with that Texans game. They have to win that one. Like I said, I've said this before in the past. It's games like the Texans and the Jaguars where if you don't win those games, that could come back to haunt you. So I think the Chargers have to get those wins against those teams. Jumping to Week 5, the Chargers will still remain on the road against the Cleveland Browns. That's going to be an underrated matchup. Now, obviously, the Browns have a new quarterback in town in Deshaun Watson. However, we don't know what his little punishment's going to be. Like, I don't know if the league is obviously going to suspend him, but we don't know how long it's going to be for. Like, it could be for one game, it could be for for 10 games. I hope it's probably going to be more than it's probably going to be like 8 or so games, or maybe half the season. But I'm not going to speculate. I'm just going to presume that the Chargers will not be facing Deshaun Watson, but we don't know what's going to happen with Baker Mayfield. Mayfield's obviously going to be shipped out, so we'll see who the Browns get, or who the Chargers will be facing as at quarterback against the Browns. Jumping to Week 6, the Chargers will be heading back home for a Monday Night Football duel against the Denver Broncos. Now, the Broncos are going to be a very tough opponent. Now, obviously, there was news that surfaced earlier in the day that one of their players got in trouble, which I'll be getting into in a little bit. So, all in all, for the Broncos, they're going to be tough just because they have Russell Wilson, and I think with all those weapons, with like Melvin Gordon and Noah Fant got traded, but Greg Dulcich might prove to be a key contributor as the rookie tight end, because remember, Noah Fant got traded in that blockbuster deal to the Seahawks, so we'll see what happens with the Broncos. That's going to be a real good game. And once again, those AFC West games are going to be so challenging just because the entire AFC West, top to bottom, is loaded. I don't think there's one team in that division that has too many flaws, so we'll see. Arthur says if he doesn't have any charges, he may not get suspended, and he already did a self-imposed sit-out. That's true, so it's all about the waiting game, and it's a time-will-tell situation, so we'll see. To Week 7, the Chargers will be staying at home to take on the Seattle Seahawks in Week 7, so they basically get the other side of the Russell Wilson trade, so I still don't think the Chargers should underestimate the Seahawks, just because Pete Carroll is a good coach. Yes, he has his ups and downs, but you never know what they could get with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. If last year's game against the Texans proved anything, it's that no win is guaranteed. No win is guaranteed. Even against some of the weaker teams with in a little bit of a rebuild. So I think the Chargers should be able to handle the Seahawks. They obviously have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and then they'll obviously have Noah Fant, and heaven knows what's going to happen with Chris Carson. So we'll see what happens with the Seahawks. Week 8 is their bye week, which I think is good, just because I want to say their bye week last year was super early. Either way, Week 8 is a solid bye week. Jumping to Week 9, the Chargers will be heading down to the ATL to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Then jumping to Week 10, the Chargers will head back to California, but they'll be heading to NorCal to take on the San Francisco 49ers. That'll be a Sunday Night Football game, and I'm looking forward to that. Bosa versus Bosa. It's going to be a fun matchup. That's going to be the beginning of a big gauntlet for the Chargers. I think the rest of the way after that Falcons game is going to be super tough. After the Niners, the Chargers are home against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have not lost to an AFC West opponent with Patrick Mahomes on the road. I don't know how that is, but whatever it is, it's rather impressive if you ask me. So that Chiefs game is going to be tough. And then the following week, Week 12, the Chargers will play the Arizona Cardinals. That's going to be an interesting game. Like, Kyler Murray obviously had that little episode of, is he going to get traded or is he going to stay with the Cardinals? I think it's going to be a fun little matchup. Two young quarterbacks, and then DeAndre Hopkins being a very talented wide receiver. He's going to obviously have J.C. Jackson on his coattails, so we'll see what happens. Arthur says, to be honest, I think the NFL has more parity than ever right now, and every week seems like it's a big game. I totally agree. I think the NFL is starting to be more balanced, with the exception of a few teams. I just think that no team should underestimate any other team, just because that could wind up costing you. And one loss could dampen your playoff seed or your playoff chances in general. So I totally agree with you, Arthur. Jumping to Week 13, the Chargers will head down to Sin City to take on Raiders! I'm sorry, I have to do it like that. That's going to be on December 4th, which is the day after my birthday, which I hope the Chargers can actually give me a good present. Now, the Chargers obviously got me a decent present. My birthday was on Friday, and then a couple days after... 2021, my birthday was on a Friday, and then 2 days after, the Chargers beat the Bengals, which really made me happy. So, anyway, the Raiders game at Las Vegas is going to be very difficult. You never know what the Raiders are going to make in terms of adjustments. Josh McDaniels is a great coordinator, so we'll see what happens with the Raiders. Then the Chargers will be heading back home in Week 14 to take on the Miami Dolphins. Contrary to popular belief, this was rumored to be a Sunday Night Football game, but they chose against it. That's why it's called a rumor. I kind of want to believe it, but I didn't want to fully believe it. I just wanted to wait until it came out of the horse's mouth, aka the NFL Network. So, I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I love the whole Tua versus Justin banter on Twitter. I just like how Tua stands say he's better than Herbert, even though numbers say otherwise, but Tua will get there eventually. And then the Chargers will also have to face Tyreek Hill, their former rival of the AFC West, which that's going to be fun. I mean, J.C. Jackson's going to have to cover him. If not, it'll be Derwin James or Asante Samuel Jr., so we'll see what happens when it comes to the Tua-Tyreek connection. Jumping to Week 15, the Chargers will stay at home to take on the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans are going to be an interesting little opponent. Obviously, they have a little turmoil with Ryan Tannehill, but they have Derrick Henry, the human wrecking ball. Now, obviously, the Chargers were one of the worst run defenses in the league last year. They were atrocious. Atrocious with a capital A. So I hope the Chargers can come prepared against the Titans. If they do contain Derrick Henry for the most part, I think it'll be a big win right there, but they should be able to beat the Titans. We'll see. Jumping to Week 16, the Chargers will have a Monday Night Football slate the day after Christmas against the Indianapolis Colts at home. So that's going to be a fun little matchup. It's going to be the veteran Matt Ryan versus the youngster Justin Herbert. It's also going to be another test in terms of the run defense, as Jonathan Taylor is a very good running back, and he's kind of he's the baby wrecking ball, if I'm calling Derrick Henry the human wrecking ball. So that Monday Night Football game is going to be quite nice. And then starting off the new year, the Chargers will have the Rams at home, just because both teams share SoFi Stadium. And that's going to be a Sunday Night Football slate, which if the NFL wasn't going to have Chargers-Rams on prime time, everyone would have rioted. I hope it stays on prime time. I really want the Chargers and the Rams to have playoff ambitions. Both teams do have tough strength of schedules. So enough about that. I think it's going to be a fun little matchup, and I think it's going to be a barn burner. And then the last matchup on the Chargers schedule in Week 18 will be the Denver Broncos. That'll be at Mile High Stadium. Now, the Chargers playing at Denver is my biggest concern due to the fact that the Chargers have had really bad struggles playing at Mile High Stadium, whether it's with Phillip Rivers or whether it's with Justin Herbert. The Chargers have had their fair share of struggles against the Broncos. So we'll see if the Chargers can pull out the win. That could be for the division title. We don't know what the AFC West is going to bring this year, so we shall see. And Arthur says that Tua is not better than Herbert. Facts, Arthur, facts. So that's that for the Chargers schedule. I won't break it down to see how many wins and losses the Chargers will have. that's going to be for another day or sometime down the road. But let's break down the Rams' schedule. So the Rams, right off the bat, they get the Bills on Thursday just because they are the reigning Super Bowl champions. And as NFL tradition, the Super Bowl champions play on Thursday against their opponent. And that's going to be a home game against the Bills. I'm really looking forward to that. I hate to say this so early. I really don't like saying this, but that could be an early Super Bowl preview. I think that's going to be a fun little matchup. That's going to be super fun. Josh Allen versus Matthew Stafford. It's going to be a barn burner. And then in week 2, the Rams have the Falcons at home. Okay, now I don't mean to say this in a negative way against Marcus Mariota, and I forgot to mention that it'll be the battle when the Chargers play the Falcons. It'll be the battle of Oregon quarterbacks. I don't know if the Rams will have too much trouble against the Falcons. If they do, then the Rams are doing something wrong. But, I think it'll still be a solid matchup. I always like Mariota. He's slightly underrated. And I'm glad he's going to be able to thrive as the Falcons quarterback. So, we'll see. Jumping to week 3, now the Rams' schedule starts to pick up quite a bit for this next 3-game gauntlet. So the Rams hit the road to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. That's still going to be a Sunday night game, or Sunday afternoon game. Now, that Cardinals game is going to be tricky. It's kind of a heads or tails game. If it's heads, that's probably going to be the Cardinals playing their best, Kyler Murray throwing it to Zach Ertz, and Marquise Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, the list goes on and on. But if it's a tails game, then it's probably the Rams having their way against the Cardinals and finding ways to expose the Cardinals. Jumping to week 4, which is a Monday Night Football game, the Rams will be heading back to California to take on the Niners, as they'll be heading to Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers. That's going to be a fun matchup. Going to be a rematch of the NFC Championship. We can finally Can I also just say, it's going to finally feel good as a partial Rams fan to not hear Niners fans run their mouth and say, "We own the Lambs." It's like, not anymore, you don't. So, I know in recent years the Niners have owned the Rams, but not now. So, I'm really looking forward to that Niners-Rams game. It is a Monday Night Football game, so we'll see. Jumping to week 5, the Rams will be heading back home to take on the Cowboys. This is an underrated matchup, in my opinion. Now, this is kind of a test for both teams. The Cowboys will be heading down to SoFi, and they'll be playing a elite team such as the Rams. For me, from a Rams perspective, the Rams are going to be taking on a talented team in terms of the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are underrated. It's just that they play in such a weak conference. Now, the Rams, on the other hand, they play in a strong conference, minus Seattle, as they play they'll be playing the Cowboys, and I think that could be a possible playoff preview. Again, it's a bit of a stretch to say that right now, depending on what happens with the Rams and the Cowboys, but I think that'll be a fun little matchup. And then that's the end of their 3-game gauntlet. In week 6, the Rams host the Carolina Panthers. They shouldn't have too much problem with that. Honestly, they shouldn't really have too big of a problem with that. Week 7 is the Rams' bye week, but after that bye week, the Rams are going to have another gauntlet. It's going to be a 5-game gauntlet. So the Rams will be home against the San Francisco 49ers on October 30th in Week 8. I think the Niners are going to present a big challenge, and that could be the matchup of what happens with the Rams versus the Niners and what happens in the entire NFC West. Just because the NFC West is so close between the Cardinals, Rams, and Niners. You saw what happened last year. All 3 teams got into the playoffs. The Rams won the division. Cardinals were second because they choked against the Seahawks. I digress. And then the Niners snuck in after stunning the Rams. and becoming the first team to defeat the Rams after the Rams led at halftime under Sean McVay. So for the Rams, I think this Niners game is going to be a big barn burner. And then after that, the Rams get another former playoff team. Like, their next 3 games are against playoff teams they actually played against last year. And it's going in reverse order. So they got to face their rival from the NFC Championship. Now they get the NFC Divisional Round opponent in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's going to be a very good matchup. Now, obviously, everyone thought this was going to be a throwaway just because Tom Brady had retired. But now Tom Brady is back. And we will get to see if the Rams are for real. Because they're going to be playing at Raymond James Stadium. And I think it's going to be a fun battle. And if the Rams can win on the road, that would be huge for them. So far, when Tom Brady is facing the Rams as a Buck, he's 0-3, which I kind of find surprising. I don't understand why, but for some reason the Rams match up really well against Tom Brady and the Bucks. It's really weird. Answers we will never get, questions we will never get answered. And then the last bit of the 3-game playoff gauntlet will be against the Arizona Cardinals. This will be at SoFi Stadium in Week 10. That's going to be another fun matchup, and it could be a pivotal matchup depending on what happens panning out in the rest of the NFC West. So the NFC West is just as big as the AFC West. And then this matchup I kind of slapped in the gauntlet. I think this is going to be an underrated matchup. I think this is going to be a sneaky good matchup. The Rams in Week 11 will hit the road to the Bayou to take on the New Orleans Saints. I think the Rams could get a challenge from the Saints. Now, obviously the Saints had a rough year with Jameis Winston going out with injury, and then they had a merry-go-round of quarterbacks such as Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, and the book of Ian Book, as the Saints should be better than they were this year. The fact that the Saints almost made the playoffs and fell short just because the Rams couldn't beat the Niners, thanks Rams, is still mind-boggling, and it's still quite impressive. So don't sleep on those Saints. And yes, Arthur, who dat? And then the last gauntlet game for the Rams, ranging from Week 8 all the way to Week 12, is a road game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the last time the Rams and the Chiefs played, it was a high-scoring affair. It was fireworks all over the place. This time, I would not expect anything short of that. I think it could be a mixture of a defensive battle, but with Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford, I think both these teams are going to be lighting it up offensively. And boy howdy, I'm surprised this is not a primetime game. I'm surprised this isn't Monday Night Football, but you can't always have the Rams and the Chiefs playing on primetime, so we'll see. And then in Week 13, the Rams get a little bit of a break as they head back home to take on the Seattle Seahawks. That'll be on December 4th, which is the day after my birthday. I think the Rams should be able to handle the Seahawks, but they just can't underestimate them. You never know what they'll get out of Drew Lock or Geno Smith, so we'll see. Heading down to Week 14, the Rams will still be at home as I say the word home rather loosely just because their next opponent has fans in LA, as the Rams will be taking on Raiders in Thursday Night Football. So I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think the Raiders are going to probably bring it. And we all know that Raiders fans thrive in LA just because they originated in Los Angeles. And we all know what happens with the Chargers and the Raiders. So I would not be surprised if more Raiders fans took over SoFi. And then after Week 14, the Rams get another gauntlet game. This one I have jotted down as a loss regardless of what happens, as the Rams head to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Now, the Packers, for some reason, they never, ever, 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 ever can win at Green Bay. I don't see Matt Stafford winning at Green Bay. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams lost. I'm not trying to say the Packers are going to dominate, but I'm just saying that in recent history, the Rams have just had bad luck playing at Green Bay. So we'll see what happens with Mr. RELAX. Jumping to Christmas Day, the Rams have a home game against the Denver Broncos. That game will actually be on Nickelodeon / I think they're also going to stream it on Prime Video, but I know it's going to be on Nickelodeon, and I think it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be Russell Wilson against the Rams once again, and honestly, I think that's going to be a great matchup, especially since Denver has improved so much. If the Rams defense can get to Russell Wilson ASAP, it should be a good game. I already talked about Week 17. The Rams are on the road against the Chargers, so I don't need to go over that matchup just because, well, it's going to be a barn burner, and if serve holds with both these teams vying for playoff position, it could be make or break. I really want to see these two teams in prime time. And then the Week 18 game for the Rams is on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Depending on what happens with the Rams, this could basically be for the NFC West crown. They can't underestimate the Seahawks because the Cardinals did that last year and they got served, which I still find funny. I'm not good, but I digress. So I think for me, it's going to be a fun matchup, and I think it should be a nice little breather match for the Seahawks going forward for the Rams, depending on what their playoff position looks like. So we'll see. All right, that is it for the Rams and Chargers schedules. So that's going to probably do it for the NFL. I'll get more in-depth into their schedules in the near future and as the season nears. Jumping on over to the NHL, the Kings play the Edmonton Oilers at the Crypto.com Arena. Currently, the Kings are down 1-0 in this game in Game 6. Last time we talked about the Kings and the Oilers, they were tied at 2-2 in the series. In Game 3, the Oilers stomped all over the Kings 8-2, which was completely embarrassing. I was downright disgusted at this. The Oilers scored 2 goals in the first, 3 in the second, and then 3 in the third. Kings didn't get on the board until halfway through the second period, and they were already down 5-0 at the time, so it was like, ew, that's no good, Kings. But they rebounded nicely with a 4-0 victory over the Oilers on this past Sunday. And then this past Tuesday, the Kings won at Edmonton in overtime, 5-4, which was quite impressive as Adrian Kempe, a.k.a. Juice, scored the game winner for the Kings. So now the Kings are 1 win away from advancing to the second round. But so far they're down 1-0 in the first period. But it's only the first period. Hopefully the Kings can turn it around. It would be great to see them moving on to the next round. I would like to see that. And I think it would be good hockey, especially in Southern California, just because we haven't really seen a whole lot of Kings and Ducks in the playoffs in the most recent years. So we'll see. So that is pretty much going to do it for the NHL. We'll jump to some MLS action. So the Galaxy is coming off of a big 1-0 victory over Austin FC. That's the good news. The bad news is they didn't jump Austin FC in the standings. They're still 1 point behind Austin in the Western Conference standings as the Galaxy are third in the conference, and they're actually tied with Dallas. Once again, there's a lot of parity. Like, Dallas was one of the worst teams in the Western Conference last year, and suddenly they're tied for third with the Galaxy. LAFC is still leading the Western Conference. They actually beat the Portland Timbers in a round of 32 matchup. This was actually in a tournament that doesn't count toward the MLS. But in their most recent matchup against Philadelphia, in the battle of the top team in the East versus the top team in the West, they actually tied 2-2, which I thought was impressive. I mean, it would have been great to win at home, but it's not better than losing. You get a point, as Quadwo Opoku and Franco Escobar both scored for LAFC, while Philadelphia had Daniel Gazdag and Julian Carranza scoring for Philadelphia on their side. So overall, that's not too bad of a result. I think that is a fun little matchup right there, and it could possibly be an MLS Cup final preview, but it's too early to think about that. So LAFC and the LA Galaxy will actually be meeting in the round of 16, as the Galaxy are hosting. So it'll be the round of 16 in the US Open Cup. LAFC defeated Portland 2-0, and the LA Galaxy defeated the California United Strikers 3-2. So with those two winning their first round matchup, the two will be facing each other in the round of 16 when it comes to the U.S. Open Cup. So that's basically your soccer news. After that, when it comes to the Galaxy, before the Galaxy can face LAFC, or whenever they face LAFC, the Galaxy actually play Dallas this weekend at 7:30, which is a huge matchup just because, like I said, Dallas is right behind the Galaxy in terms of the number 3 spot. I know it's a little early to look at standings, but the MLS has so much parity this year. Like, teams that were bad and missed the playoffs are actually good. And while in teams that were really good or that have been perennially good are not good. Like, take for instance Seattle, a team that I want to say won some sort of tournament that no one really cares about, as Seattle, which won the Champions League final, is not doing they're not doing nowhere near good in the Western Conference. They are second to last in the West, which is very surprising. And Sporting KC is like near them, as they're 12th. So it just goes to show that the MLS has a lot of parity this year. And I think for the MLS, it's going to be one of those years where teams are starting out cold, and we could see teams start to get hot. There's still plenty of season. There's a lot of season to go. So I would not be surprised to see the Sounders back in the playoff hunt. So back to LAFC. LAFC actually plays the Colorado Rapids at Colorado on Saturday. Colorado is currently 9th in the Western Conference. I don't think LAFC should underestimate the Rapids, just because you never know with these teams. Like, you never know which team can pull off an upset. And like I said, so much parity going on in the MLS. I think anything can be possible when it comes to the Rapids or the Timbers or any of these bottom feeder teams. So we'll see what happens when it comes to LAFC and the Galaxy. They're having great seasons to start out. Like, LAFC is still in first place, albeit they're only 3 points ahead of Austin. But their only loss, once again, was to the Galaxy and El Tráfico, which they could have easily won that one. However, unfortunately for LAFC, VAR took away a late goal, which eventually saw the Galaxy win in regular time. So, well, not regular time, but extended time. So either way, I think there's plenty of time for both of these teams going forward. That is that for the MLS. Jumping over to the MLB. So remember when I said that the Dodgers have some winnable games and they could be boosting their lead in the NL West standings? Boy, was I wrong. As the Dodgers did sweep the Cubs in their 3-game series after they swept the Giants in their 2-game series. But for some reason, the Dodgers lost 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates of all teams, and they're currently down 4-0 to the Phillies. Now, I don't understand what's going on. The Phillies are not good. Like I said last week, I saw the Phillies play against the Texas Rangers, and it was a complete gong show against them. So I don't understand why the Dodgers are struggling against teams when they were just coming off of some decent victories over the Cubs and the Giants. Like maybe they had a little bit of a Giants/Cubs hangover, and now they're starting to basically go the opposite direction. They're still leading the NL West, don't get me wrong, but the Phillies should at least take 3 out of 4. And then the Diamondbacks could be a little bit of a tougher series just because, first of all, it's the 4-game series. Second of all, they get a doubleheader on Tuesday. And then the Dodgers have Philadelphia at Philadelphia, and then they have the Nats and the Diamondbacks. So what is looking like this could be more ground to boost for the Dodgers is starting to look like what on earth is going on with the Dodgers. So we'll have to see when it comes to the Dodgers going forward. I think the Dodgers are still in good shape. It's still very early. Like, I don't think anyone should be hitting the panic button, but the Dodgers have to win against some of these teams that they should beat quite easily. Like, they have to beat up on the bottom feeder of some of these divisions, like the Cubbies. Well, the Cubs aren't really the bottom feeder of their division. They're the second to bottom feeder, and then the Pirates are in the middle of the pack, surprisingly, and the Phillies are next to last when it comes to the National League. So, overall for the Dodgers, they're still having a good start to the season. I just want them to actually do good against the subpar teams. That's all. Because right behind them are the Padres, who have actually won a good amount of games. Now, they did just drop 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, losing the first game 6-0, winning the second game 5-4, and losing the final game 7-5. However, if the Padres want to make up ground against the Dodgers, they're going to need to start winning the games that they have to win against. They can't afford too many splits in series or losing too many series. They did win 3 out of 4 against the Miami Marlins, and unfortunately for them, they split their series against the Guardians. However, they should be able to make up ground against the Braves, though the Braves are kind of an unknown at the moment. I think the Braves they're not bad, but they're not good. Like, they're kind of having a World Series hangover, but they did just walk off against the Red Sox yesterday, so we'll see what happens with the Padres going forward. I think the Padres are doing good considering the NL West is so competitive, because the Giants are starting to get on a roll. They're actually the hottest team in the division. They've won 5 in a row. The Rockies are starting to cool off, and the Diamondbacks are surprisingly doing decent in the NL West. They're not the bottom feeder. They're actually doing solid. Every team in the NL West is above 500, which is quite impressive, and I think it shows how deep the division can be. So we'll see. And then jumping to the American League, the Angels recently took a loss to the Tampa Bay Rays, but they took 2 out of 3. They won in convincing fashion on Monday, 11-3, and then they actually pitched a no-hitter from Reed Detmers, their rookie. He's a very young boy. I think he was a prospect in high school, and now he was able to just pitch a no-hitter in a 12-0 victory over Tampa Bay. Also, Shohei Ohtani hit his first ever Grand Slam as an Angel, so that was quite a historic win for the Angels. I think they got a little bit of a hangover when it came to that game, as they wound up losing the final game of the series in extra innings 4-2. I know everyone's going to say, screw the Phantom Runner rule, but the Angels shouldn't have let that go to extra innings to begin with. Just goes to show that the Angels are still hot and cold. Speaking of hot in the AL West, the Houston Astros are the hottest team in that division, as they've won 10 in a row, which that's quite nice for them. I mean, good for them. Good for the Astros. So the Angels have the day off today, but they have a 4-game series against the Oakland A's at Oakland starting on Friday. Then they have a doubleheader on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they finish up the series at Oakland. And then The Angels could also make up some ground, as they have the Rangers, and then then they're at the Texas Rangers, then they're home against the Athletics, then they're home against the Rangers. Then they've got the Blue Jays at home, which the Blue Jays, they're okay. They're in the middle of the AL East. My true concern for the Angels will be when they go to visit the New York Yankees, but that's not until the end of the month. So I won't look too far ahead, but the Angels could make up some ground against the Astros. So they have to beat up on the Rangers and the Oakland A's. The Rays, or not the Rays, the A's, the Oakland A's. The A's have actually strung together 3 in a row after they had themselves a sluggish start. So overall, I think the Angels can't get too fat and lazy. So I think they're still having a great start to the season. They just can't cool off, just because I have a few friends that are saying, oh, the Angels are still the Angels. Thanks for listening in, Art. He says he's got to head to bed, but I appreciate you tuning in. So back to the Angels. I'm kind of a little concerned about the Angels and their slowing down toward the middle of the season. I hope they don't slow down. That's kind of their problem. They have a rocky. They kind of slow down in like the middle of the season, losing to subpar teams. I talked about this last week. They can't afford to lose to the subpar teams. They have to beat up on the teams that they're supposed to beat up on. So if the Angels can do that, they're in good shape. So that is going to do it for the Angels. And I was going to talk about the NWSL, but I'll talk a little about the NWSL, as Angel City FC unfortunately took a loss as they fell 1-0, which made me sad face. But it's okay. It's still pretty early in the season in the NWSL, and I'm not really tripping honestly. I think it's still quite early, and I think Angel City FC is still doing their thing. They lost to Orlando 1-0, but it could have been worse. It could have been a whole lot worse. San Diego, on the other hand, they won against Gotham 4-0, which that's actually in New Jersey/New York. As believe it or not, San Diego is atop the NWSL rankings, or not the NWSL table. But the problem is this: they've played 2 games, while Portland, Washington, and Chicago have only played 1. So we'll forgive Portland, Washington, and Chicago for only playing 1 game, as well as North Carolina. So for the San Diego Wave FC, I think it's great to see them atop the standings, but it's still very early. Like their next game is against Chicago, and they're still a young group. I hope San Diego can still continue to do great things. It would be so awesome if they did, as well as Angel City. Obviously, Angel City took a tough loss, but Orlando is experienced. Orlando is an experienced team. So, yeah. All right, that does it for the NWSL. I don't have anything to talk about in terms of the NBA. I do want to give a quick shout-out to USC's beach volleyball team. I already talked about USC Beach Volleyball on Set Point on Monday, but I do want to give them a huge congratulations on them winning the NCAA championship for the 2nd straight year. It is their 4th NCAA championship and 5th championship in beach volleyball. They did have an AVCA beach volleyball championship, but since that's not NCAA sanctioned, it doesn't count. So that's going to do it for that brief little shout out. So I'm actually going to go over. We're actually going to get. No, let's actually. I was going to do Dum Dum of the Week, but let's go over iSports Radio and its 8-year anniversary. So, iSports Radio turns 8 years old, and to celebrate the 8-year anniversary of iSports Radio, I want to talk about some of my favorite players that wore the number 8 in terms of sports in Southern California. So, obviously, the first one comes to mind is Kobe Bryant. Kobe wore number 8 through the first half of his NBA career, and they switched to 24. I always remember number 8 Kobe Bryant and what he did, as he did so many great things. He helped the Lakers win, I want to say, 3 championships back in the Shaq era. They should have won 4, but those darn Pistons got in the way. Overall, I think Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, was something to remember, and may he rest in everlasting peace. And I loved seeing Kobe Bryant, and he was just a great asset to the Lakers. So, jumping on over to USC football, so Dwayne Jarrett was a wide receiver. Now, you're probably wondering who Dwayne Jarrett is. He was actually the first two-time All-American wide receiver for USC, earning honors in 2015. He had 146 receptions at USC, which put him 8th on USC's career list. And believe it or not, he actually wore number 8. So it actually is quite fitting that he wore number 8. And he had 29 touchdowns in 26 games, and he caught at least one touchdown pass in 17 of his 26 career games. So, overall, Dwayne Jarrett had himself a phenomenal career at USC in terms of football, and that's why I have him up there. And then my last memorable number 8 player in Southern California is Steve Christie. He's actually a kicker for the then San Diego Chargers. He actually has quite a bit of history for the Chargers. He was the first kicker to ever recover his own onside kick in a playoff game. He set a Bills record by kicking a 59-yard field goal in the regular season game. I guess he was with the Bills at the time. He actually set a Super Bowl record by kicking a 54-yard field goal. And then he also has 9 game-winning field goals in overtime to his credit. So, obviously he had himself quite the big reputation in Buffalo, but he actually had a one-day contract with the Bills so he could formally retire as a Bill. But when it comes to him wearing number 8 with the Chargers, nobody had it better than wearing number 8 than Steve Christie. And he is probably the best place kicker and kicker overall when it comes to either the Bills or the Chargers. And he did wear number 8, and I think that he puts kickers on the map. And to me, I think he deserves some love when it comes to number 8, when it comes to Southern California. He actually signed 11 weeks into the 2001 season, and he actually took over for Wade Ritchie's lack of accuracy, and he actually was replaced by Nate Kading, which he unfortunately made 42 out of 57 field goals, but he like I said, he did some spectacular things for the Chargers. So, and in his whole NFL career. So now we got to get into the Dum Dum of the Week award. So the Dum Dum of the Week award, I actually kind of had to slap this together. So I actually saw something quite interesting on Twitter. There was going to be some college football pods in terms of the college football season. And I saw that the Big Ten had Iowa State and Kansas. And someone on Twitter said that no one wants Iowa State and Kansas in the Big Ten. And I totally agree. I don't even know how Iowa State and Kansas is going to fit in that anomaly when it comes to the Big Ten. Then someone on Twitter, I guess he is an Iowa State fan, said that Kansas would roll in the Big Ten along with Iowa State. Let me say that again. Kansas in football would roll the Big Ten along with Iowa State. This is why I don't like Twitter sometimes. Like, Kansas is perennially bad when it comes to football. I don't want anybody to say that sort of thing. Like, that should be banned. Elon Musk, please ban that man on Twitter. You cannot just say things like that. Of all the things to say, you can never say Kansas would roll the Big Ten in football. They barely could beat Texas for all we know. Like, this is why Twitter is not real life, according to my brother. But for that one person who said Kansas football would roll the Big Ten, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week award recipient.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We're going to have to cut it quite a bit short. Like I said, I only had an hour to do this just because we have another show coming on. We have the Screwball podcast with Brad Buckingham, as well as his good buddy Coleman. They are both Seattle Mariners fans, and they break down baseball really well. They make baseball entertaining. So thank you all for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I appreciate you all tuning in. Big shout out to Arthur Parsons in the chat room. I appreciate you tuning in. Without any further delay, for everyone here at iSports Radio, thank you for choosing iSports Radio. You have plenty of options to choose podcasts all over the nation and in terms of sports, but you chose us, and we appreciate your support. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great weekend in general. Enjoy your Friday. Don't be a dum-dum. Definitely keep a sharp lookout for iSports Radio's 8-year anniversary special on Saturday, and we will see you Monday for Set Moon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!